Good morning. Welcome back to the One Celtic Fans View this morning. Today has been classed as Super Sunday in the SPFL. When you see the games that are on today, Celtic obviously are away to Kilmarnock, a game that we must win. Kilmarnock have been on fire at home. Never mind the result where they got beat 5-1 away from home, but they've been an absolute fire at home, winning 3-0 and then winning 4-2 recently. Motherwell entertain Aberdeen. I think that's a win for Aberdeen, or a win for Motherwell, sorry, all day long. I think that'll be a Motherwell win, especially the way that they are playing. And then Rangers Hearts later on in the afternoon. What would you say would be the best result for Celtic when it comes to that result? But before we talk about that anymore, I'm going to talk about the Stuttgart game. Yes, Stuttgart were playing yesterday, and whilst you may look at the score and you might think, wow, they won 3-1, and you might think it was a bit more emphatic than it actually was when you look at the stats. Stuttgart scored in the first 15 minutes of the game. And then it wasn't until the opposition scored in the 79th minute that Stuttgart really burst into life, going into the end of the game, scoring in the 84th minute and then the 92nd minute. When you look at the stats, it was actually a bit more even than what it looks. Which to me, it's a team that's down, down in 10th position in the league, I think, and Stuttgart are up there, meant to be vying for the title, but they're a bit off the pace at the moment. But anyway, 12 shots on goal versus 10 shots on goal. 5 on target versus 3 on target. 58% versus 42%. 390 passes, 330 passes. 85% pass accuracy. 78% pass accuracy. 11 and 10 fouls accordingly. 4 yellow cards for Stuttgart at home. That's an interesting one. That tells you they play with a bit of physicality at home, and that is one to watch out for. That they did get the 4 yellow cards. Are they right up for the fight? Are Celtic up for the fight at Celtic Park against Stuttgart this week? And what do you think that the score will be in that game? Stuttgart was obviously fourth position in the league. Do they have a chance of winning the title? 22 games in on 42 points. And when you see the fact that Bayern, Dortmund, I mean, they would think that Stuttgart would be looking to try and finish third in that league. And then it is an interesting league, not one that I don't look at the results on a weekly basis, but it is interesting to see that Stuttgart, it wasn't as easy as what the scoreline said. So it's maybe a word of warning to Celtic as they entertain Stuttgart this week. But before that, Celtic do take on Kilmarnock today at 2 o'clock kickoff. Motherwell versus Aberdeen is a 2:30 kickoff. And then Rangers versus Hearts at Ibrox is a 4:30 kickoff. The Rangers have been in quite a good form at home, so you would expect them to take points off of Hearts. It'd be an interesting one to see this afternoon for definite. If Rangers do take points off Hearts and Celtic win, we are still within touching distance in the table with the Rangers with a game in hand. I'll just jump onto the table. And, it maybe makes the league a little bit more exciting and it makes it a bit easier for when Celtic do win our game in hand versus Aberdeen. So, what would be the ideal scoreline for you? Whatever it is, there's one thing for sure: Celtic will need to try and score as many goals as possible. Will goals now come into play? Coming into 12 games to go for Hearts and 13 games to go for Celtic. I think the big thing is today is who starts in midfield for Celtic and who does Martin O'Neill really trust to get the job done. Away from home on that pitch, plastic pitch, Martin O'Neill rest players with one eye on Stuttgart, or does he just go out and play the best team possible to make sure that they get the 3 points? Because ultimately, the league is the one that you want to win. Although Martin O'Neill does want us to go far in the Europa. What would you rather? The Europa? A good run in the Europa, right to the final, like we did in 2003, and we won absolutely nothing, Or would you just say, like we've had a, unless you're going to win the Europa, there's no point, like some people say. And would you just say concentrate on the league? Can we still do our treble? That's the big question. Maybe getting a bit far above us, but you never know. Anyway, the Stuttgart game will take care of itself. What do you think the scoreline will be this afternoon? I think the big question this afternoon will be, does Martin O'Neill start with Oxlade Chamberlain in the middle of the park? I would say yes, because when you look at it, he's not in the European squad at all. So he's surplus to the requirements for when it comes to the game on Thursday evening. So do you just go all out and use him in that midfield today to make sure that we get the result that we want and the goals that we want? I would like to think that Celtic could score 4 goals today, but Kilmarnock have been scoring quite a few goals at Celtic Park. The thing that Oxlade Chamberlain brings is obviously a bit of class and a bit of experience to this squad, having done absolutely everything when he was at Liverpool. And you seen the class when he came on the other night. I mean, that curling shot into the back of the net from outside the box was exactly what Celtic needed. Although Callum McGregor did try a couple of shots that just weren't at the level that Oxlade Chamberlain is at all, were they? Do you start him? Who do you start in defence? I think the defence speaks for itself. I think the big one will be who starts in midfield for Celtic. But with the fact that Oxlade Chamberlain has missed out a lot of football over the last couple of seasons due to injury, you know, after coming on and scoring on his debut at Celtic Park, will that be enough to silence critics that say that, you know, he maybe be injury prone? Or will Martin O'Neill just say, look, we need the best players that we can to win the game today? Remember, we will be going live an hour and a half before the game today, as the team is announced by Celtic at Rugby Park, and then we'll be doing a watch along for the game also. And then you never know, we might be back on later in the afternoon to see what the other scorelines are. Now, I did ask in yesterday's video whether or not a certain Rio Hatate should start for Celtic today. Let's see what some of your comments are. I don't know if Rio should play for Celtic again. If Rio starts, will he turn up? Forrest came on in the last couple of games. If Ox can play an hour, then we need to start him. If not, Hatate before impotent McCown or Invisible Bernardo. Rio needs some tough love. Sit it out, son. Have a rethink, regroup, and your focus. If you want to move, remember, you're in a massive shop window. Sayonara, Rio. Engels. 3-1 Celtic. Not bothered who plays, to be honest, as long as we get the 3 points. I wouldn't play Rio if we were winning. I'd bring him on. Would you play Rio Hatate even if we're winning? I'm not too sure about that. Get the goals early, and then he'll either have to come on or just try and keep the score down. They'll have to come on or try and keep the score down. That's obvious. But 3-1, 4-2. Tell me your scorelines in the prediction. McCown and the Ox got to start in that game. That's a good shout, actually, because McCown won't necessarily be used in the European game on Thursday. Do you play McCowan and Oxlade Chamberlain from the start? That's a good one. Remember, you will find out before the game today, an hour and a half before kickoff. We will be live. Make sure you join us then. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can join in the chat. On that note, have a fantastic day, Celtic fans, wherever you are, all around the world.